Thank you very much, Valerie. It's indeed my pleasure to be here today. Now, let me first just make a comment about $1 billion, not much. Actually, it was about $3 billion as we worked through that fiscal year, recession hit. But let me tell you, we thought it was a lot of money back then. That shows you how far we've come in Illinois when you kind of snickered $1 billion or $2 billion. It's my pleasure to be here today. I want to first thank all of you who are involved in the not-for-profit organizations and the donors. I can tell you my experience as governor, when we went through tough times and good times, we would not have been able to meet our responsibility to those in need without an effective partnership with not-for-profits, period. Government can do a lot of things, but government by itself can't do very much except cause a lot of trouble. Government working with others, particularly the not-for-profits, in trying to deal with the problems of those in need, can be a very effective approach to solving problems. And I like to think in the 90s, we were pretty effective working together. I look back and I think in 1991 when I came in, Illinois was 50th in the nation in the number of adoptions. When I left office 8 years later, we were #1. And we would not have achieved that without the partnership with the private sector, helping us find loving homes for those children. As governor, we instituted a program called Project Success to try to help students in school who weren't receiving the help they needed so they'd be ready to learn. I'm not talking about educational help, I'm just talking about basic medical care, other cares that many of your organizations are involved in. And as a result of a partnership with the private sector, tens of thousands of children were able to receive the care they should have been receiving but had fallen through the cracks. Kid care. Late in my administration, when we finally had money, we started a new program to provide health insurance for children of the working poor. It was called Kid Care. And one of the things we found, and it's no surprise as I watch what happened with Obamacare, is that, and we were giving something away free, Kid Care, and how hard it was to get people to sign up. Without the help of not-for-profits bringing in families and helping us to alert families to sign up, Kid Care would not have been a success. There were also some real fun things as well as important things. I remember I wanted to make use of the governor's mansion. That's kind of a forgotten part of Springfield these days. But I launched a scholars lecture series, bringing in scholars from Illinois to talk on various topics. We were only able to do that because we had a partnership with the Illinois Humanities Council, which proved to be very successful. So the list goes on and things that happened during my administration that I'm sure made me look a lot better as governor, but it was because of your organizations being good partners with the state of Illinois. Now, how did we achieve that? Well, it just didn't happen automatically. And I have to tell you, there were times when we didn't always agree. And I was looking through the list of attendees and the organizations you represent, and I have to say, I got a smile on my face on a couple of the groups that I remember we used to have some battles. We didn't have any money and you had a lot of need. And we were trying to figure out how do we work together. Well, by the end of those 8 years, we were pretty much in harmony. We were pretty much in agreement. One of the things that I made very clear to my cabinet, and I think is extremely important, and we do have a gubernatorial election coming up, and while you're out there trying to find out where they might be on the issues, be sure to find out where these candidates are on how they're going to be governor, how they're going to administer the office, which is extremely important. But one of the things that I made clear to my cabinet, and it filtered throughout the ranks, we're in partnership with not-for-profits. We're not adversaries, and we're not going to take our responsibilities and shift them over to them. We're going to do this together. And I'd learned that as Secretary of State. Back in the 80s when I was Secretary of State, we started a war on drunk driving. And one of the things was when people were arrested for drunk driving, we wanted to make sure they didn't have an alcoholic problem before we let them back on the road. So they had to receive clinical review. Now, a lot of them didn't like this, but we felt it was necessary because we knew there were some people who had a problem and they needed that problem addressed before they got back on the road, but they needed that problem addressed for a lot of other reasons too. And I made a lot of people mad when I did that. But I'll never forget, later on, I started getting letters and people stopping me, thanking me for forcing them into alcohol rehab because it turned their lives around. Now, we weren't able in the Secretary of State's office or in state government to make that happen. That happened because a lot of people outside of government in not-for-profit stepped forward and provided counseling and continue to provide those counseling today. So I knew when I became governor, we needed an effective partnership with not-for-profits. And the people I put in my cabinet positions knew that as well. They knew that because they're smart and they knew it, but they also knew it because their boss thought it, and they were also smart and they did what their boss thought. So again, take advantage of this election to make sure whoever the next governor is understands the importance of not-for-profits, just not paying lip service, but to make it a meaningful partnership. Now, when we would sit down, there were times we didn't have the money and you folks had the need, and we had to find some common ground. We had to compromise, something else that's been lacking in government the last few years that I think we need to bring back into the mix. But after much discussion and some disagreement, we were always able to find common ground and move this state forward, something we need to make sure happens here during this fiscal crisis, during these challenging times. Now, I could go on, but I'm on a tight restraint here on time. And Val, she's tough, I can tell. And I don't want to be thrown off the podium. So let me just leave you with one word: compassion. And I particularly direct that to the government part of this partnership. And let me just say, I'm glad to see members of the legislature here and some from some of the constitutional officers. I wish we had more from the executive branch. I wish there was somebody from the governor's office here today, because it's going to take working together. And hopefully from this conference today will come some good concrete proposals on how we can rejuvenate this partnership, which I think was extremely effective in the 90s. And I think maybe is not quite as effective today. But the word I want to leave you with is compassion. And again, to government people, compassion. That's what really one of our major responsibilities in government. One of our major responsibilities is to help people who need help. It's not really to get reelected. It's not really to get one-upsmanship on the other party. It's not a turf war. It's helping people. And we need to always keep that in mind. Now, that came home to me very clearly as governor. Some of you have heard me tell, this is my favorite experience as governor. I was running for re-election in 1994. It was about 2 weeks before the election. I had a pretty big lead in this one. I thought I was going to win, as opposed to 1990, which I didn't know until they told me I had won. But this election, I thought I was going to win. But I got invited to the south side of Chicago for a groundbreaking. Now, groundbreakings are fun if you're in government. And I didn't get to do many of them when I was governor because we didn't have much money. But this was one I got invited to. And it was going to be in this obviously non-Republican area of the state, the south side of Chicago. And my staff said, "Why do you want to go?" And I said, "Well, I want all the votes I can get, and I'm going to go there." And I said, "Plus, it'll be a fun day." And it was. It was a beautiful fall day. I showed up, huge crowd, about 2,000 people. This was a depressed neighborhood. They had not had any good economic news in a long, long time. And this new building was good news. Now, I was invited because the state of Illinois, Children and Family Services, was going to put an office in this building. And because the state was going to have an office in this building, that meant the lenders would loan the developer the money for the building. See how times have changed. Today, if you said you had a state facility, they'd probably turn your loan request down. But then it was security. And so that's why I was invited. And so I get out of my car, and the people are all happy, and I go and get a shovel with the other dignitaries, and we turn dirt, and I'm walking back to my car, and about 1,000 people are kind of crushing in on me, and I always had state troopers with me. Well, I looked around, and that day I had 2 Irish guys for some reason, and they were pretty noticeable in this neighborhood, and they were no place to be seen. And the crowd was around me, and I didn't too much worry. Everybody seemed in a good mood until this one gentleman walked up to me. And he was dressed, I could tell he'd had a tough go in life. And he looked at me and he said, "Are you Edgar?" Well, I had just spent $3 million on a media blitz in the Chicago area saying I'm Edgar. So it was going to be a little hard to deny I'm Edgar, but I could tell this guy didn't seem real happy with whoever this guy Edgar was. And I said, "Yeah, I'm Edgar," and I'm looking, my troopers, no place to be seen. And the crowd is really getting excited. They think this might be more fun than the groundbreaking. And the guy says, "You know what you did to me?" And I thought, I don't know what I did to you, but I sure wish I hadn't have, because in 2 weeks, I'm going to be reelected by a large margin, but I'm not going to be alive to see it. And he said, "You took away my welfare check." And I thought, oh boy. And I remembered back in that first year as governor, and we were having battles over the budget, and I had to make cuts, and I made the decision I didn't want to cut aid to dependent children, because I thought that was a priority. But I did say, in order not to do that, we're going to cut welfare for able-bodied men and women, which did not get a federal match, by the way. And I thought it was a tough choice, but that's a choice I made. Well, legislators in the South and the west side of Chicago particularly were very much opposed and fought me the whole session, and finally we worked it out. But they told me, they said, if we do this, we're going to have riots in the street. Well, we did it. We never had riots in the street, but I thought we're going to have a riot right here on me from this gentleman. And before I could say anything, and he said, "And you know, that was the best thing you could have done." I kind of looked at him. I said, "Huh?" And he said, "Well, you took that welfare check away, and you made me go to job training." Now, again, the compromise process said, we're going to keep funding for 6 months. If you go to job training, then that's it. That was the compromise. Well, this gentleman had gone to job training. He said, check wasn't very much, but I wanted to keep it. So I went to job training. And I just want to thank you, because ever since that job training, I've had a job. Not a very good job, but I've had a job. And now he had a little girl on his shoulder, and that's not the only reason I thought he may not kill me. And he said, "And I can't tell you how proud I am when I come home at night, because this little girl knows I've been to work. So just thank you very much." Well, first, I was so relieved I wasn't going to die. And then 2, I said, "Where are the TV cameras, when you need them?" But more importantly, it dawned on me, here was something that we had talked about, worked on. It wasn't the biggest issue before the General Assembly. We'd compromised, and we'd put in this job training, but I'd actually kind of forgot about it until that day. But what hit home to me, no matter what the issue is the government is faced with, no matter if you're the governor or you're just somebody in their bureaucracy, you are there to provide help to people who need help. And what you do can make the whole difference in that person's life. In some cases, the difference of life or death. And we need to keep that in mind, those of us on the government side of that partnership, that what we're about here is helping people, not re-election, not trying to get one up on the other guy, but trying to help folks be able to live a normal life, a good life. I think if we do that, if we remember the word compassion as we work on this partnership, then I think we'll be able to get Illinois back on track and make Illinois, again, a place we're proud to call our home. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Governor, for your leadership in this state, for sharing some wonderful examples, but I think especially for me, for really highlighting a value that binds all of us together in all the work that all of us do, and that is compassion and our deep commitment to helping others. So thank you so much for being with us.